Joyful Heart Praise again with your host, Geraldine.
Oh Lord, I want to thank you for this day on Joyful Heart Praise.
What's wrong with you? Okay. Which host, Geraldine? Tata. Just keep going.
I'm traumatized.
I know, me too.
Traumatized because the world is going on. I'm traumatized.
Hi, my name is Marcus.
Oh, here we go. Don't say nothing crazy.
And he's an
I'm
alcoholic.
Listen. The last time we were with you, we talked about dating in the church. Married and dating, part 1. This is married and dating, part 2. So if you missed what we talked about in part 1, I'm not going to tell you. Find that one that says marriage and dating, part 1. Click on it, and then come back. All right. Now. This week, what we want to talk about, and this is sad that we're having to talk about this, but I also want to address some things that people have to deal with. And that is when you're talking about marriage and dating in leadership, and not necessarily they're married in leadership and dating. No, it's they're married, they're in leadership, and they're dating people outside of their marriage. Now, I know we try to paint this picture that church is so perfect, and oh no, that doesn't happen, but it does happen. What I find as a leader is that it becomes very, very important that you have a very strong balance. When I first got ready to open up ministry, one of the things that my wife shared with me is that she did not want me to ever counsel a woman by myself. Mm-hmm. The pride in me was like, what do you mean? Because I only looked at her statement from the perspective of her not trusting me.
Mm-hmm. Or you might have looked at it as you knowing your friends from before you met her. So I'll be like this, we're more like sister and brother. So you might have seen it like that.
No, I totally saw it as her not trusting me. Because my friends don't go to our church. So she's saying any female
I got you.
at the church, right? And so I took that as a challenge of her not trusting me. Like, you should know me.
Yeah, but Mimi, I support you.
But what I began to understand, first of all, I've never had to counsel a woman at the church, which I thank God, because my wife is so good at what she does. Right. The women at the church gravitate toward her.
They're comfortable.
Exactly. So I don't have that issue where everybody loves the pastor, can't nobody stand the first lady. That's not my testimony, and I'm so happy it's not my testimony, right? So we don't have that issue. They naturally go to her. And then if there's something that she needs to bring me in on, then it's her bringing me into their conversation, their setting, not they're asking to speak to me, and now my wife is in the setting. Right. But as I began to exercise in ministry, I began to understand that her issue was not that she didn't trust me. Watch this. Mm-hmm. And it was not that she didn't trust them. But when you have emotional people, not women, period. Emotional people that are dealing with emotional things, it becomes very easy for a person's emotions to gravitate to you. Why? Because you're the one presenting them with answers. You're the one presenting them with hope. You're the one presenting them with alternatives.
Their pillow, their comfort.
Exactly. And so now their emotions begin to tie to you. And if you have any type of insecurity, and insecurities don't necessarily come because your spouse creates them. Okay? Right. That is not the reason. Right. Okay? I have had moments, Ty, when I was in the world and I hooked up with an old female, not because I was insecure, not because of any of those reasons. It was merely to see, do I still got it?
Do I got game?
You know, and after it was all said and done, I was like, dang, I wish I didn't do that.
I was wasting my time.
You know, so it is nothing about, home isn't doing, she's not doing what, it has nothing to do with that. You have emotions, you have pride, you have a moment for the enemy to now, he's not the one that brings you all together, he's the one that creates opportunity for it to happen.
That's all it does.
And then it's about you saying either, no, I'm not going to indulge in this engagement, right, or no, or yes, I am. Right. Unfortunately, we have times where our pastors or our leaders are getting caught in that trap. You got people that try to bait them and all that, but those are obvious situations.
They wanted that.
Those ones on the slide where you're counseling and you're talking to them, and then that leads to, hey, we should go have coffee sometime.
And it should lead to no.
Right. Well, it should be.
Like, it should
or
be
not
no.
without, the wife.
Even
but
that
the
is a
bottom
scary
line
moment
is
for
they'd
me.
be like, oh, she busy. I ain't gonna bother her. We're gonna go have some coffee.
That's
It's
shady.
innocent, and the stuff starts off innocent until you get some people though they get power trips, and they got this power and they got this control over these people, and then you got some females that really believe.
It ain't just females.
You got some men that really believe, but there's more times out of 10 is some females that really believe that pastor married the wrong woman and that God told them that they was really supposed to be with them.
Hey,
you
can I tell you something?
Mixed up
That's not just. I'm be honest with you. That's not just women
Really?
that do
That's
that.
what I'm saying.
There are some men. When I say men, I'm speaking of that pastor. That if there are some now we're dealing with insecurities. If there are some insecurities or some things that are continuously happening in their marriage, they will sit and look at that person and go, maybe
I made a mistake.
right, maybe I was supposed to be with this person. You know what I'm saying? Maybe this. And here's the worst part is that in those situations, only certain things will be magnified. And
Negative.
Right. And here, I'm gonna give you an example. I shared with the church on, I think it was last week. I'm a undercover country music buff. Okay, a lot of people don't know
I knew that, by the way.
This is why most of these people don't know it, because they laugh. One of my favorite country music artists is Garth Brooks. Mm-hmm. Garth Brooks penned a song, and it said, "Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. Remember when you're talking to the man upstairs, just because he doesn't answer doesn't mean he don't care. Some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers." Mm-hmm. And I look at my wife, and I can honestly say, God, I thank you for my unanswered prayers. Because I don't see anyone else that I can do ministry with.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Yes, my wife is beautiful, beautiful to me. But you know what? One of the things that we say this as a sense, you help me if I'm wrong, Ty. We say this, if we're real honest, we say this from a sense of a surety to us and a surety to our spouse, that our spouse is the baddest thing walking. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is, on paper, piece by piece, there's somebody else that probably looks better. Mm-hmm. When it comes just to the outward, you feel what I'm saying?
Right,
just outward stuff, right? But when I look at the totality of her, I couldn't do ministry with anybody else. I couldn't have the productivity I could with anybody else. And what the enemy will do is when you're at that low moment, he will placate on one or two aspects.
Little tiny.
You know what I'm saying? Like, did I marry the wrong one? Look at her hips. Okay, what good is her hips if she's not gonna, uplift you?
Yeah. No, because I think what happens is we magnify fallacies. We turn mountains out of molehills, right. in a sense. When you're at moments where you become critical. It's easy when you're critical.
For an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking for an excuse. And that's what I think, 100%. I believe that it's an excuse-riddled action process. It's not just all of a sudden something turned innocent. It was never innocent to begin with.
Right.
In my opinion, this is Ty. Mm-hmm. When I become a pastor, back up. When I was elder Ty, youth pastor only, I was so oblivious that parents would be attracted to me as a youth pastor because I was mean.
Right.
I was a hideous, mean, I was jacking kids up. Not realizing that many of the single women in our church that didn't have men in their house
needed,
and I'm so oblivious because I'm thinking about college, I'm thinking about teenage pregnancy, I'm thinking about drugs, I'm thinking about mental baggage. I'm not really caught to the fact that they are trying to trap me. Because what happens is the knowledge of good and evil is tainted with experience. Which is why when the devil said, I will show you what you haven't seen before. He didn't show them what they've never seen physically. They haven't never internalized the knowledge of good versus evil.
Yeah.
And so
he changed keys.
What ends up happening is that when relationships begin to break down, if we don't attend to that point of breakdown,
Right.
it becomes bitter because it dries out. One of the things about lighting the flame of our marriage, keeping our marriage hot, yada, 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 yada.
That's
Because if you
the
keep food in the oven, eventually that food, if you don't take that little, we call it juice, and get it over the meat again,
It's gonna get dry.
that meat is going to dry out.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, if in a relationship, if preachers, regardless of gender, aren't attending to their homes more than they attend to their church, their marriage dries out, and now you start looking for replacements,
Right.
like a vehicle or a piece of clothing, because you're not focusing on what you have, you're focusing on what you don't have. And that's what I think gets preachers in trouble, because all of a sudden, all of the stuff that you don't do, you don't fold my shirts up correctly, I done married the wrong person. What? Because some laundry?
And that other person that's in your ear,
It's
all
probably
they're doing
worse.
is telling you all
What
the stuff
you
you
wanna
want to
hear.
hear.
Right, exactly.
You know, so you have opened up yourself and made yourself vulnerable.
Yep.
You know, by sharing different things that maybe shouldn't have been shared, or maybe at the time you shared them from a standpoint of wanting to be transparent, so that they understand that, you know, this, that, and the other, you know, that we all go through, right? But now all of a sudden, you know, you begin to end up spending more time counseling than you are uplifting your
Pastoring
own or
your
your
own
own
house.
house, right? And now all of a sudden, everything that you find wrong at home,
Is
this
right.
person seems to fulfill
Right.
in this session. At some point in time, you got to ask yourself, who is the patient?
Right.
Me? Ain't they in here for something wrong?
Right. Exactly.
How are they the answer to all my problems if they in here because something wrong?
Right. Right.
I
Because
think a lot of them too, they be on the phones. They don't think nothing's wrong with being on the phones. Then they start texting. They don't understand what's wrong with texting. Well, that's intimacy time.
That's why there has to be boundaries.
That's bonding time. That's getting to know you time, and all that stuff. That, you know, it's funny because I've been married to my husband. We're in our 11th year, but it took all 10 of them years to really get to the place that we're at of knowing each other.
Because
Yeah.
it takes time to know someone.
Yeah,
You gotta get out of this idea that,
takes-
you know,
Yeah,
I've been with you
overnight.
for 2 or 3 years, I know you better than you know yourself. I don't even know me that well.
I was gonna say,
So how you know me better than I know me, and I'm
think
still
you
trying to
know
figure
something
me
you
out?
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, but also for
And
me,
sometimes I think they get into a routine.
well, no, that's good in a sense.
No,
I
don't mean
like
in a
a
good routine. I mean in a buddy almost. Just
too friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
and I mean with the
I think
husband
I hear
and
you.
wife.
Mhm.
I think they get into a partnership
Rather than a marriage.
more than
Where everything is just on
marriage.
autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
mhm.
So
You can't do
all
that.
the important stuff is taken for granted.
So the
Yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
part starts seeping out, is what I'm saying.
And I know there will be people that will comment because of your own personal experiences, or you may be you may have seen some raunchy stuff in church, and so you feel like we're making excuses. One thing that I would encourage you is that every situation that we're talking about does not cover every situation you've
Right.
experienced,
Right.
and every situation you've experienced does not define every
Encapsulate
situation that's
everything that
happened.
we, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do, the effort that we're trying to do is bring awareness to not just the preacher, because you know you get caught up in this trap, but also bring awareness to that person that's sitting in that other chair. You're there being counseled. So everything that's being discussed in that room is actually from a tainted place.
Right.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not that it's
It's
wrong,
surface.
but yeah,
I
it's,
get it.
yeah, you know,
you're
it's
trying to take your depleted area
right.
and reinvigorate it, not develop this disgusting relationship
Right.
with the
It's
person who's
inappropriate,
trying
like
to
hero worship
right,
type relationship
just savior worship
based on
type deal.
someone
Yeah.
who's helped
Bottom
you.
line is, if you in trouble and you pastor, man of God, minister, and you married, and you are starting to stray, put a fire back under your own. Now, if you can't get that lit back up, that's when you go to God.
Well, wait. Can I add something
Get
to
some
that?
prayer.
I think there's a misstep in between that, because I think a lot of times pastors on their own and then going to God, there's no accountability there.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you yourself, and you
Well,
can lie, because God is, I think you need a
when I say
person.
get with
A person.
God, sometimes, most men don't want to talk to other men. So, I mean,
Well,
it's
that's
like
why you gotta
they
challenge
wait till they
Right.
hit.
Because the ones that don't want to
Sometimes when
talk.
they wait till they hit rock bottom before,
Listen.
man, you should have came to me.
Can I
Man,
tell
I
you
knew I
something?
should have came to
I'm
you.
gonna tell you an honest to God truth. A man that won't talk to another man is a man that don't talk to God.
Yeah, because God is.
It's not something that you just turn on like, ooh, I can talk to God more than I. Think about this. Talking to God is an act of faith.
You must
If
believe
you
that
won't
it is.
do an act of naturality,
How are you going
how are you going to do an act of faith? I'm about to mess up everybody and people's going to be mad at me. Half of the people that talk about that they pray to God don't pray at all. You have thoughts.
Right.
You might have desires. But you ain't really getting down, praying to God, praying in the spirit, and you can't talk to another person? Let's start with practicality. Let's start with reality. Let me call up Ty and say, Ty, I'm struggling, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's until I do that
I
I'm
won't
really
get
going to
my
be able to
connection,
sit
yeah.
and, talk to, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you messing up, that becomes an excuse to continue.
Yep.
Because you
Yep.
have that desire to talk to God, but you never
Yep.
end up doing that act. And so you just continue in what you're
I would tell
doing.
you,
Women are better at that than
yeah.
men.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
I will.
Women
do
are
that.
better at that, and I'll be honest, I was preaching at St. John. I just pulled up that video.
That was a good old
It's on
message.
Facebook.
That was a good old
And
message.
I had said the difference between a men's retreat and a woman's retreat. I went to a men's retreat. Every night we was done at 9 o'clock.
On the dot.
On the dot, in our rooms.
Oh, wow.
Watching
Good.
TV.
That's never
Feel.
happened.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
To the
First of
front.
all,
That's
we had a
never
place for the
happened at a
TV.
conference.
Women, when they go on a woman's retreat,
We don't have
there ain't no cell phone service,
Ain't no
there
TV.
ain't no TVs, and y'all don't be out of church till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning,
For real.
sprawled out, makeup messed up, hair messed up, all that, right? So, I mean, there's a difference in that. You, as women, I won't say that you guys can't do that. You guys probably can. Sit, and you guys do, sit and cry out to God, God, why is this? And,
And we talk to each other.
For a man, it's more practical to be able to. You got to, brothers. You have to set pride aside.
Yeah.
You have to get with someone that will cover you, but not cover you up.
Oh, right. Big
Okay,
difference. Big
there's a
difference.
difference. There's a difference. Someone that will cover you will let you know I'm praying for you,
Yep.
but listen, you've got to be accountable. I'm going to
Yeah.
call you out if I
Yep.
see something
Yep.
because you've come to me because you obviously need help.
Yep.
Okay? But I'm not going to cover up, which means that if you continue to keep doing what you're doing freely, then we got
Made a little
exposure,
block.
right, between me and me.
Yes,
Why
sir.
are we absent? Because we're going to be absent.
Absent.
Because I'm
What do
going
we
to
know?
be involved in no foolishness.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
For real.
So that's the first thing is, man, we got to be able to come to each other and be accountable. So you've had marriage and dating part 2. I
We didn't
hope
get
that
to
you were-
talk to the dating with the singles.
I'm sorry, we're going to do that
We're
again.
gonna
We
try-
will
we're gonna hit them
hook
up.
that up. We
We're
will
gonna
hook
get
that
it.
up.
We is, and you know what? Maybe during that time we need to. I wouldn't mind excusing myself and letting a single come and
Yeah.
talk because
We'll
we're
get
married and
somebody to
people
talk
sometimes
about that.
dismiss what we have to say because they like you get to lay next to the person.
Because
That's what
we're
we
all
always want
married.
to.
We're all
Sometimes we be mad. You know what I'm saying?
But some of us have perspective. I was.
No, you were saying. That's what I said. I wouldn't mind stepping
Thank
aside
you
and
for
letting
joining
somebody.
Joyful Heart Praise. Remember, purchase the hoodies and support us. Help us out. Subscribe, and don't ring the bell. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Geraldine.
I'm Letha.
Hi. My name is Marcus.
One thing about Joyful Heart Praise, we are always interested in new artists sending us music to joyfulheartpraise@gmail.com.
Did you guys get my song that I sent?
What song did you send?